first priority is product in customer's hand. I don't care how it's going to happen. So if that, too many times I've actually dealt with other fulfillment centers and 3PLs where they are reliant on the software. And that's great when it works. But when it's not, and the customer's not getting their product at a certain time, or there's a hiccup, well, you can't just be a slave to the technology. So generally speaking, it's great, but I always recommend having a human eye to challenge it and also oversee.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast, Decoding the Digital Industrial Revolution. I'm Arvind Sarin, and today we have a guest who embodies the thrilling industry shift happening right now. He's a master of taking ideas from concept to reality and then scaling those businesses to incredible heights. Our guest is currently leading a company experiencing explosive growth, a true digital rocket ship. So, without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Brian Bailey, the Chief Operating Officer at Emulait. Brian, welcome to the show and thank you for being here.
Hi, Arvind. Thanks so much for having me.
Fantastic. Well, you've had a fascinating career, growing BB design across multiple channels and then transitioning to COO at Emulait. What initially drew you to the world of manufacturing and supply chains?
Owning and operating my own direct-to-consumer business, I wanted to get ahead of the competition and realize that you can only go so far selling products purchased from wholesalers, right? So the exclusivity and increased margins you get from manufacturing your own merchandise is what can actually set you apart. So I was always involved in supply chain and fulfillment, being direct-to-consumer, e-commerce, and brick-and-mortar retail, but with the purchasing from wholesalers. But then when I got into the manufacturing world, realizing that we needed to up the game a little bit, that became a whole new animal. And it's actually what ended up setting my company I owned apart and what I brought over to Emulait and other startups.
Fantastic. Wonderful. So I think it is perhaps then a good idea that if you want to run an experiment, if you're not sure about the product market fit, then you can go to the wholesalers or to the other third-party services. But then once you hit that product market fit, or once you see that the customers are liking it, then in order to scale and in order to maximize that margin to put it back into marketing and to really grow the company, the strategy is to go direct to manufacturing.
That's exactly right. And for better or worse, manufacturers are going, even the wholesalers that supply retailers, they're going direct to consumer, right? So whether that be through their own websites or Amazon or whatever channel you have it. So, it's almost like the wholesalers entered the retailers market. So we kind of got to go reverse now as well and say, all right, well, how am I going to keep these margins and even compete now with my wholesalers? And that's the way. Start to manufacture your own merchandise.
Love it. Yeah, because you got to differentiate and you have to have this unique relationship with your customers and have that ownership of the relationship, build that community. And I think that's definitely a recipe to scale. Now, what would you tell somebody who has a product, but they have a manufacturer in China, but they don't have that exclusivity, and they're bringing that product and maybe even drop shipping? Like, when is that right time to go and invest in your own manufacturing, whether it's with a partner or you do it yourself or you make in America, whatever the scenario? Can you tell me a little bit about, like, how do you tell it's the right time to now go deep in yourself?
I think it's really important to solve a problem, right? And first, like you said, it's always great to test the waters with potentially something that may be close to what you're looking to manufacture that's already being produced by a wholesaler, so you can see if there is a product market fit. But then recognizing, similar to Emulait, and I'll tell you how that started. It was I wish it was my idea, but it was our genius CEO's idea, who is just a serial entrepreneur and product developer. His daughter had a tongue tie issue and was having trouble latching onto bottles. And so he asked the doctor, why don't they just have a bottle that's made just like a breast, just like a real nipple, so that, these children can latch? And the doctor said, so there's your problem, right? To bring it back to your question, right? And the doctor says, well, that can't be done. Now there's your open space and your opportunity, right? And being the serial entrepreneur and genius he is, he said, well, watch me. And so there's a gap, right? A problem. There's your product will be a solution. Now, you also got to say, okay, well, what's your market, right? And you also, it's one thing to just do for the better of solving that problem, but you're not going to hit many people if it's not viable as a business, right? So you got to make sure that there's a market out there for it. And that comes with, right? So,
yeah, I mean, and that's kind of like that market validation, because I feel like we all have our hypothesis and we can be like, oh my God, I've got this idea. I have this need. My cousin's got this need. My neighbor's got this need. You know what? I'm going to go all guns blazing and lay out a manufacturing plant. No, that's not a good idea. You got to have data to back it up. And I guess what I'm hearing is that it may be a good idea to initially partner and then test the market. And then at some point you would see that, that point where you're like, okay, well, definitely I'm seeing that there's that demand. And even in the initial stages, maybe you don't care as much about the margins, because you just really want to test the demand and how this is going to be received. And then later on, it can be time where, the profits can be maximized or recovered from the initial investments that were made in the product. No, that sounds wonderful. And I guess you already described a little bit, but for our audience, just tell us a little bit about Emulait, and also if you could put it in the context of how your experience at BB Design involved like managing a product's journey from manufacturing to the final customer, and like what were some of the key decisions that fueled your success, and how those experiences like translated to your current role at Emulait.
Yeah. So to tell you first quickly about the product, and I actually have a bottle right here.
Perfect.
Yeah. The idea behind the Emulait baby bottle, and we have other accessories, pacifiers, and some other baby accessories, but the original product is the baby bottle, which the difference here, yes, the bottle is actually shaped like a breast. We have two styles. We have another classic one, but it's the nipple. It's the engineering behind the nipple and how it acts. It is just as breastfeeding is. And the low hanging fruit customer for us is the mom who is breastfeeding and then goes back to work, right, and wants to continue breastfeeding. Traditional bottles have a hole in the middle, and baby can chug it in 3 minutes. And why would you want to go back to a breast and breastfeeding where it's work, right? And so that's sometimes why going back. But this lets, dad, nanny, whoever, caregiver, feed the baby while mom's at work, let's say. And, then mom comes home and there's no difference because this acts exactly like mom would. But there's also any baby gets the benefit now, even if you're not a breastfeeding mother, of the oral development and the countless medical benefits that you get from breastfeeding, you can now get from this bottle. So like I was saying, the differences are, rather than just a hole down the middle, there's actual holes throughout the nipple that express just like a normal breast would. It actually has this elasticity that is what a nipple does. And again, there's been countless studies and research behind this with a whole board of medical professionals that advise on this. Down to, there's little, if you can see these little fibers that are not hollow. They don't serve any purpose for the milk flow, but it's actually what a baby feels in their mouth when they're breastfeeding. So it's quite an interesting product in a stale market. And just to finish about the product, and I'll go to your question. Mom scans her breasts with an app, with our app, that's like facial recognition. And her nipple is now matched to one of our 25 SKUs, shapes and colors, 5 shapes, 5 colors. And now mom also sees herself in her bottle that she's feeding her baby. So it's a very interesting product, but
it surely is. It surely is. And I mean, is it also the texture? Like, there must be some engineering on the type of silicon, and tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's very, you know what, it's what I'm most proud of, and not myself, but to be working with the company like this, the engineers and the product design team, they don't stop until it's perfect. And even when it's perfect, which it is, we're still looking to enhance to make it exactly like a breast. So for instance, like you just said, the silicone, it would have been very easy to stop at a certain durometer thickness, okay, that wouldn't necessarily have all this flex. And we put it through compliance and it would pass under a certain durometer. Well, we said no. That's like the current nipples, and that's not what we're doing. We need more stretch. So we actually took it down a level in durometer and tweaked the tooling and manufacturing behind it so that it would still pass compliance with that same stretch. So it's an FDA approved special silicone, but it's how it's made up actually in the manufacturing process that's unique.
Wonderful. Wow, quite innovative, and I'm sure that it's serving a lot of need that moms, that babies have, and so definitely doing good for the community aspect there as well. So you have this product, and at some point when you saw the demand, you were like, "Whoa, we are on to something." So that's perfect. But looks like you also from the beginning integrated technology into it, of being able to scan the nipple, because I mean, you could have also said, okay, well, what do you want? Like, it's 2B, 3C, like, some code. No, you're doing it, making it easy, making it an amazing customer experience, so the mom also feels connected with it. So you're enabling that scanning. So definitely technology is playing a huge role. What other areas is technology playing a role here? Like, I guess common questions would be, how would you know how many of these to produce? Like, how do you forecast that demand? And tell me a little bit more about how the operations behind this works.
Yeah, and that gets into some of the technology and the AI and some of the software that's in IMSs and WMSs nowadays that it's unbelievable. And it, where I don't need to make a calculation as to how many of our starter kits will fit onto a pallet. I, just plug in anything into, our software and you're given those numbers, especially similar with demand planning. Our systems are just reading off of what has sold. And what's interesting and a little challenging, different from us is Uh, we have a combo of sometimes, depending on the supply chain, products will arrive to our 3PL fulfillment centers kitted already, or they'll arrive in components and they'll be kitted at the 3PL. Now, not on demand, but but that takes planning as well. How many need to be on the shelf at a certain time?
True, because I'm sure that out of the 25 SKUs, there may be 2 or 3 or 4 that are more common. So you're saying that all of that is handled by software. It's not a guessing game. It's not crunching numbers on an Excel. It's not, just visually inspecting it, but it's really based on that AI-based software that you're able to forecast that, okay, well, this is the kind of demand that we're going to be getting. That's fantastic. So how accurate has that been?
That's a great follow-up question, because it has been very accurate, but I personally, and that's just a need for perfection, right, is to challenge it. To not just, and this actually goes back to a question you asked previously of, what kind of brings successes in supply chain management, and that is planning for flexibility and not necessarily just taking the original plan and saying that's what it's going to be and we're good, because God bless when that happens, but it's very rare. And knowing how to pivot is what I think is integral and necessary in supply chain management. So yes, it's been accurate. It's been very good, but certainly need to keep our eye on numbers, quantities, and what might be on the shelf at any certain time. Our motto, and I've always brought this to any business, and we've adopted this at Emulait, is first priority is product in customer's hand. I don't care how it's going to happen. So if that, too many times I've actually dealt with other fulfillment centers and 3PLs where they are reliant on the software. And that's great when it works. But when it's not, and the customer's not getting their product at a certain time, or there's a hiccup, well, you can't just be a slave to the technology. So generally speaking, it's great, but I always recommend having a human eye to challenge it and also oversee.
I like that, because you don't want the software to automatically order 10,000 more bottles of a certain size just because there was a glitch or some parameter had some data that didn't make sense. I think it's kind of like, when my finance team gives me monthly numbers, I kind of know what the numbers are already. And if there is a big discrepancy, I can tell, what? No, that's not right. So they'll be like, no, we double check the calculation. No, something's missing. We know it. And then you go back and you're like, oh, geez. So I think it's like that. I'll give you another example. And I think it's only going to get better from here. I'm glad that it's at least being useful, because forecasting, demand planning, all that is just so important, especially now with AI becoming ubiquitous. We created a platform for a company that provides technicians for HVAC repairs. So we looked at all of their data. They're nationwide, all over the US. We looked at their data. We took that data. We set certain parameters. Then we married it with the weather data so that because weather is an important factor. If there are more calls coming in for air conditioning repair, it's usually on those hot summer days. So you marry that, and then it gives you, this is the number of calls for technician requests you're going to get in this area on this day. So it forecasts for the next week and 2 weeks like that. And I think, our customer got very good results as well. Now, keep in mind, we continue to tweak the model, and we're like, hey, let's retrain this with this data. And I think that the results were useful. I would say they were very useful, so they could hire up, create that contingency. And like you said, I mean, it's all about creating contingency so you can continue to serve the customers the best possible way. I think keeping customer right in the center, making sure that we're thinking from their perspective, it just goes a long way. Well, we've delved deeper into Emulait's operations and what it does and what the inspiration was. I guess a little bit of that side. But what's the mission? Like, what excites you the most about its aim to impact the manufacturing and the supply chain landscape and overall impact that this product can have?
It's the direct to consumer response. The response that we get from mothers is overwhelmingly emotional, and the good that we're doing is incredible. We're actually looking now even to go and take another step and go into NICUs, and we're actually creating a new nipple right now that will be able to be used by preemie babies and help them as well. So from day one, before we launched, we got emails from mothers saying, I need this product. My baby won't take anything and I won't produce. I can't produce for whatever reason. Do you have samples? I know you haven't launched yet. Can you please send me something? So to now where we get thank you emails all the time, it's really rewarding. And so their reaction's amazing. And then working with these engineers and designers and the manufacturers themselves who don't stop, like I was saying, until it's perfect, because we're really providing something that is a need and is impacting moms and babies, which, I mean, how can you get more rewarding than that? So it's exciting. It's a nice thing to be a part of and see the response.
Love it. That's got to get you out of bed and, help you put in those long hours. And of course, I think that motivation is really important. Now again, a curious question, like, you have such a great product. It's got such a wonderful demand. Obviously, with your experience, you're able to use digital transformation, use technology where it can help you perform better, and you leverage all the experience you have. But what about protecting your product with, from the copycats? Like, what stops, someone else to just take a look and then be like, okay, well, we've got our version of this bottle that, also gives you similar look and feel. How do you protect against that? And do you worry about that?
Greenberg Traurig. We have some of the best IP attorneys in the world. Literally.
Nice.
And that is our most valuable asset. So is that challenging also when you're international and distributing throughout the world? Absolutely. But because of that protection, the legal protection, we're not as concerned. Then take another step back. Arvind, this industry, sadly, is archaic. And there has not been innovation in baby bottles for ever. I mean, there's nothing like this product. I don't know if, first of all, what we've designed took many years. So it's challenge, and we've got the best of the best behind it. So it's not like it was any lack of effort or quality, right? So it was a challenge. Can someone reverse engineer it? I don't even know that they can. But we're not concerned about direct copying. Can someone do something similar? Possibly. But I think it's going to be really difficult, and we've already set the stage for
True.
What this product is and who we are.
You guys are the OG. I mean, you are the brand, and also, creating then that community, and all the research that's gone in. So do you sell internationally as well then?
We do. So
And all over the world?
we're now in about 15 countries. We have a fulfillment center in Europe. So we launched in the US and Canada. And then about 6 months later, we launched in Europe. So we're based out of the UK, where we fulfill there. But we're also servicing Mexico, Australia, New Zealand. So we're looking now to be in the Middle East.
Got it. Fantastic. Well, congratulations on that. That's wonderful. What are some of the biggest challenges that companies are facing today when it comes to establishing and optimizing their manufacturing and supply chain operations? What do you think, could be some of the most challenging things to tackle early on?
I think the international aspect. This world's getting smaller and smaller, right? So the international aspect that we were just touching on is actually challenging. I think first step is you always have to plan before executing. And that sometimes is not followed, especially in startups. I'm actually really proud of Emulait, and I think it's my and other members of the team's experience that we've brought to Emulait to not go down the roads that probably all of us have previously and have learned, right? I'll give you an example. I've been with other manufacturing at another company where they'll make the product, right? They'll test it, and then it'll go to production. All right. In parallel, they'll be testing at a lab for compliance regulations, to then find out, oh, it didn't pass this chemical test. Well, now you're at the drawing board, right? So I think this stage one planning is something that a lot of companies don't necessarily think all the way through. And giving that example, your engineering team, your design team should have the list of compliance regulations that need to be followed for, again, not just the country domestically that you're in, but also if you're thinking of going international, think ahead, right? Okay, it might be 5 years, fine, but let's design the product so that it could be sold in Brazil. So, but that needs to happen at the design level, right? And
what I'm hearing is that definitely the foresight, but also at times it helps to not go so fast. You got to go step by step. So that's what I'm hearing is the advice, and I feel like that's super important and a little bit counterintuitive at times, because we generally have that feeling that no, go launch, and you're nothing until you launch, and go flood the market. I remember hearing about Uber when they became popular here in the US, and then they wanted to launch in Paris. They just sent an executive with a checklist, and like 7 days, Paris was up and running with Uber. It doesn't apply to manufacturing and supply chain. It's also when you slow down a little bit, you become more thoughtful, and then you could also integrate technology like you've been able to do with the imaging. That's a huge plus. Then also, as you mentioned, using software for demand forecasting and transparency, and managing all of that good stuff is also very important.
And
other technologies.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just going to mention. Don't get me wrong. Speed is and pushing is clearly important, and I think that's why we have this great combo at Emulait. I've never been part of something that moves faster. It's out of control, but because we have the foundation of how we're going to do it, right? That's where we say, all right, let's move fast and push, but still follow our process so that we're not wasting more time and money at stage 10, let's do that at stage 2 so we don't have to go backwards, right?
Absolutely. Eliminate risk early on for the items that may be bigger risks. That makes sense. For our audience, somebody, many of us have all these different opportunities that lure us. There may be someone in the audience working for a large organization, and then they have a colleague or, somebody from the business school that wants to start a venture. And everybody wonders, whether or not this is going to work out, whether they should leave their cushy job or, that stability and go to something a little bit more risky and perhaps unpredictable. How did you cross that bridge? What assurances did you have that this is going to work? Now, obviously, with your good work, looks like things are going great, but I'm sure you didn't know that day one when you had joined.
Absolutely. And I went from practicing as an attorney in a cushy, secure profession, right, to jump ship. I think it depends on what stage you are in your life, of course, right? I'd love to say to everyone, oh, just do it, but there's risk to it. Absolutely. And I'd say if you're younger, right? Yes, jump ship, go for it. You could always go back to cushy and you'll learn as you go. Okay. Yes, I went to business school and I had some foundation, and I had actually started my own businesses in college, and that was just the entrepreneurial spirit was always there. But I still...
You always wanted to be an entrepreneur. You've always wanted to, you had that bent towards, wanting to shift value and, create value. Got it.
It definitely is what drives me and gets me excited to go to work every day, right? And being a part of something that you're creating and moving. I don't like, certain people that are wired certain ways, right? But I did learn as I went. And if I didn't have that, 14 years experience in my own business, I wouldn't have started some other businesses. I wouldn't have consulted on startups, and I wouldn't have been a part of a few other startups, as an actual operating officer. But I think if you are later in life, I have a friend right now who is starting a massive startup with a big name actually in the shoe business. He's older, right? And yes, he's ran his own business, but he's never been, a part of creating a big brand as a startup. So I've been consulting with him for the past 6 months, and just on a friendly basis, right? And he says to me a couple weeks ago, he says, everything you've been telling me is right and is working. He's like, you're now my lucky charm. I'm just kind of listening. He said, but I'll tell you, I get it. Because 6 months ago, I had no clue. Now I could tell someone else, how to do these things. So what I'm getting at is, if you're older, if you're a little later in life and, you don't have as much time to necessarily learn as you go, hire a consultant. Get someone who has done it, because the experience is invaluable. And is it rocket science? Not necessarily, but it's a big knowledge base that if you got the time you want to learn it, great. If you want to take a shortcut, grab someone and let them teach you and set the stage.
I love your advice, and I'm going to shamelessly plug Copper Digital in. And of course, we're a company who loves to work with entrepreneurs. Of course, back when we started, in fact, today is our 14-year anniversary. So I recorded a really heartfelt message for my team, for my customers, and it was, really an emotional moment as well. And I remember that initially when we had started, it was very different. Like we made all the mistakes that there possibly could be. And, working with the entrepreneurs, it was about, you have an app idea, great. We'll create an app and we'll help you launch the application on the App Store. And, that's how we initially started. And then we realized that it's, those enterprise accounts, because the market was so crowded and there was everybody who could just hang a shingle and create an app, mobile app development company. So we went to the enterprises and saw that where is it that we can create real value, where we can show them the ROI instead of just, hey, this is a great idea and let's launch it on the App Store and hope that it picks up, which some of the products picked up. I mean, and some of them very unusual ones. Like there was this app that we created called TextPix, where you could send a text message with ASCII characters that would show a picture or something, with the ASCII characters with exclamation and question mark, and it'll create a picture. And that made $250,000. And this is way back when. So I can understand. And that's why I would say working with a consultant, somebody who's done, this hundreds of times. So like for somebody in manufacturing, talking to the expert, paying for their expertise, and then still, of course, making your decisions yourself and evaluating everything yourself. But, paying to get that expertise for somebody who may have already done it, I think that's the fastest way to learn and, grow. I think I also agree with you that it depends on what stage you are in your life and what's the risk. I mean, I think I got lucky. For me, 14 years ago, I mean, I had nothing to lose. And of course, I had a job. I used to work as a software developer at Fujitsu, but I knew it. The moment I graduated from my MBA, I was like, doesn't matter. I didn't even have a green card back then when I started the company. And it was like, no, we just throw the hat over the wall and, you jump and things are going to work. And so grateful for all the amazing people that came along the way and helped and, helped us accomplish our goal to serve as many businesses, startups, medium-sized businesses, small businesses, and help them with that same technology that some of the larger companies have access to. Believe it or not, way before iPhone was launched in 2008 or App Store in 2008, iPhone in 2007, FedEx was using these Windows-based mobile devices to get those signatures. So, I mean, the larger companies have the budgets to innovate and come up with those solutions, but then this just really democratized. And I think that's what our mission is, to enable small, medium businesses to have access to that same technology, demand forecasting. And I mean, a pizzeria should be able to plug in their numbers and forecast that, okay, this, margarita pizza is going to be selling really good in this neighborhood on a Tuesday because, there may be some religious aspect with the South Asian community or something, which is very hard to otherwise tell, but AI can do its magic. And I'm so bullish, and we're living in times that we haven't even scratched the surface. I mean, a lot of the amazing changes that are going to happen are ahead of us. And I just can't wait to continue to stay plugged in and see what's coming up in terms of technology. And that's why we create a few products, here and there, and, software as well. So switching gears here a little bit, do you see traditional manufacturing giants collaborating with innovative startups like Emulait, or will there be more disruptive approach to the industry's future? What do you see more happening, and what do you recommend should happen for the good of everybody?
It's actually, I was going to comment on what you were just saying prior to that, but it feeds right in,
Please.
Which is, I completely agree with how bullish you are about, technology and its impact on small to medium-sized businesses. And that's what's so amazing, is that pizza place, right, that just opened down the block can have that same demand forecasting logic that Nike does. I mean, legitimately, and I think small to medium business owners, whether they're looking to make a giant out of something or they just, want to keep it local, should recognize that you don't have to be an enterprise. You don't have to hire, you don't have to pay outrageous amounts now to get that technology that you deserve. And I think too many don't recognize that and think that it's out of reach and might not necessarily, think about going after that aspect of the business, which is just saves you time to dedicate other areas.
Totally.
But
you don't have to have a data scientist and pay him $250,000. You don't. You could just, look at the different platforms for your specific industry and see what's out there. What are some of the platforms using AI? What are some of the new startups? What are new products that are getting launched? Or like, we were talking about, talk to somebody who has expertise in that sector and brainstorm with them. Oftentimes, these companies won't even charge for, listening to your problem, because there's a potential that if that solution is required, then you're going to use their services. And that's how we get a lot of our business, by giving free consultations. And I think that's what should be the mindset, going into this technological.
Absolutely. And you're just hiring I don't know your company's fees, but regardless, you're hiring the brains that are there. I mean, I'll bring you back to when I was practicing law. We poached a partner from one of the largest law firms in New Jersey at the time. My law firm was a medium-sized firm, and the hourly rate of this partner at the old firm was probably 3 times the rate at the new firm. But it's the same legal mind, right? So a lot of these consulting companies, I mean, I'm sure you guys have amazing resources that are brilliant and can do the work, whether you're middle down the road fees or not. It doesn't matter. You got to trust who you're working with and know that they can do it. And people got to throw out, big, small, and whatnot. But to get back to your original question, which kind of crosses over, is I actually think some of these big manufacturing giants, and I'm part of it actually, are realizing that there's potential in startups, and they're willing to take the quote unquote risk, right? Even, and I'll switch gears from manufacturing and go to fulfillment. There was a 3PL, the number 3, I believe, size 3PL in the world that we were originally going to work with for European distribution. We decided to go another direction, but they had an entire program that they were starting for startups and to cater to them, and a pricing structure based on that. And they built in the risk of, okay, these guys may be here today, gone tomorrow, but we're gonna support it, and we're gonna build a sector of our business to focus on it. So I do think now. I do also think that they don't just take anyone, and there is some risk assessment there, as there should be. But I do think some of the giants are okay now and not just pushing startups off. So, they should be definitely considered when looking into whether it's manufacturing or fulfillment. Don't be afraid to go to the big guys.
Got it. And I think it's more intuitive for software companies, right? You build a software, that's different than actually having manufacturing and logistics and fulfillment and that product being shipped. So I think what I'm hearing is that the same principles of driving innovation in these pockets and promoting these startups that are very nimble to experiment and then bring out the best and enable the manufacturing companies to use their scale and then expand is a very good strategy. And that's why a lot of these companies have incubators, like something like what you were describing as well. And I think it's the younger people that are thinking about getting into creating these startups should also give more importance to sectors that are maybe not getting as much attention in manufacturing and logistics. And that's why I guess to end this great conversation, by the way, I can go on and on and on. I would ask you, what advice would you offer to entrepreneurs, to future leaders who have this idea in mind that they want to do a startup, a non-traditional, not just, create an app and launch it on the App Store, not just an enterprise software, that's just software-based, but the ones who actually want to make an impact if in the future of manufacturing and logistics. And what advice would you offer?
So I would, and I get back to planning. I think it's great to be instinctual and have visceral reactions and go, and that actually leads to success. So I don't want to minimize that. With that said, come up with a business plan. Create a business plan. Think about every dollar. Also, funding. Funding is a thing, right? Ideas are great and it could be super successful. But you need to get it there. So think of whatever money you need and double it, right? And figure out how you're going to get that. But it's these steps of planning. But then don't be afraid. Once you're okay to plan and set yourself a course, go for it. Now rip into it and give each step its dedication, but follow your plan. Don't just shoot from the hip and say it's gonna work. And as amazing as products might be, products don't sell themselves. I've always said it'll be challenging. I'm serious to sell to give away a bar of gold, right? You got to convince someone that it really is gold. So
couldn't agree with you more. That was actually, I was talking about Capstone, that professor that we had at UT. He wrote a book and it was titled, "If You Build It, They Would Come." Obviously, they won't. You just don't build something and then hope that they're going to come and buy the product. So, love the advice there. And I think what I'm hearing is plan and then, just don't be afraid, get into it and make it happen.
Absolutely. Love that. The last thing I'll add to that is partners. Make sure you got the right partners. And it's one thing to be able to do everything yourself, but you're not going to be able to. Make sure you got the right partners to work with, and
starting from a good co-founder like your CEO saw in yourself. And I bet you it's 10 times harder to do it as a solopreneur instead of having a team of founders. And I think that's also very, very important, and all the more important in a non-traditional, non-software type of startup that can leverage a lot of this technology. Well, wonderful. Thank you again. Well, folks, we've reached the final stop on this whirlwind tour of innovation. So as we power down for today, keep that fire of innovation burning bright. There's a whole new world of manufacturing being built out there, and it's going to be incredible. Until the next episode on Decoding the Digital Industrial Revolution, stay curious, stay hungry for growth, and keep on decoding the future. Goodbye.
Thanks, Arvind. Thanks so much for having me. Congratulations on your 14th anniversary.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Goodbye.